Alrighty guys, and welcome to today's video. I wanted to start off by announcing that I'm going to try and do this weekly thing. I don't necessarily want to call it a podcast, but it's basically going to be a podcast where I come out with a video once a week talking about the things I like. So without further ado, I would like to introduce But Why. Don't know why I decided to call it that, but I guess it just has to do with my name. That's what I decided to go with, and it's what I'm going with. I came out with that video last week and I saw that YouTube had their new podcast feature. And I'm like, well, I could do a podcast and this is basically a podcast because you don't necessarily need to be watching the video. The video is just for your viewing experience, I guess. You could literally just have this running in the background and listening to me talk. And also, I want to say that I'm an idiot. My microphone here, I've had it for a good year now. You can probably tell about now. Oh no, I'm peaking a lot. I just realized. Hold up. I sound a lot better now because I've had this mic for over a year now, and I've just now realized I've been speaking into it backwards. Yay. So I sound tons better now, and I didn't waste a couple $100 on this very nice mic. Gonna get the full use out of it now because I'm not an idiot. Today's topic is again about music. I'm going to be talking about a couple of my favorite bands. Today's topic is I'm going to be talking about, in my opinion, their most overrated song, their most underrated song, and my personal favorite song from that band. Some of them have multiple in the those topics, and I will be sure to mention the multiple as we get there. Also, before we get started, I plan on having these videos around 20 minutes to 30 minutes. If they end up going longer, that's probably fine. I'm going to try and keep them to about half an hour to 20 minutes each. Starting with the band Villain of the Story. I have these all pre-written down, and I'm just going to give my thoughts on them as I go over them. Their most overrated song is Peace of Mind from their Ashes album. I personally prefer Villain of the Story's heavier stuff, even though I do like their lighter stuff. Like, I really like their lighter stuff. They really know how to write like a sad song. But in my opinion, Peace of Mind, it is one of their better sad songs, but it is their second biggest song, but it is just a bit too listened to for my taste. Their most underrated song, in my opinion, is True Obsession off of their Bloodshot album. Now, I talked about this song in the last video, and I wasn't sure what it was, but I've been listening to it since, and I just realized it's a super good song, and it's one of the lesser listened to on the Bloodshot album. And my favorite song from Villain of the Story is, to no one's surprise because I have the AMV on my channel, Burn the Foundation. The instrumentals in that song with the vocals and just the energy kept up the entire time. I recommend you check out all these songs that I mentioned, by the way, because I can't exactly play them over the video. I can, but I would just like you to check out the entirety of the songs yourself as I talk about them. Moving on from Villain of the Story, we have Currents. Now, Currents, you can't say anything bad about Currents because everybody loves Currents. That being said, I am going to give my opinion on what their most overrated song is right now. And right now, I believe their most overrated song is Kill the Ache off of The Way It Ends album. It has a bit too many listens for what the song is, in my opinion, and Currents just has so much better songs, especially off that album, that this one, I don't see why too many people enjoy it too much. Their most underrated song, in my opinion, is Silence off of The Place I Feel Safest. It is like the second least listened to on that album, and it is probably in my top 5 of Currents, because the breakdown at the end of the song is stupidly good. I can actually play it right now. I'll just... If you can't keep up, fuck you. Okay, well, there's that little snippet of that song, but that's a big reason that that song is their most underrated, in my opinion. And as for my personal favorite song from Currents, it is probably Delusion from their The Place I Feel Safest album. It's just got that wacky riff in it mixed with a disgusting breakdown that makes that song like one of my favorite like songs that I found from Currents. If I had to choose another one that wasn't Delusion, it would probably be Better Days from The Way It Ends. But it is one of the most listened to off that album, but I think it deserves it, so that's why I don't think it's underrated. I would say, and I'm going to mention one more underrated song from Currents, and it is How I Fall Apart off of The Way It Ends. It's one of the first songs I listened to from them, and it's just so good. Okay, moving on to Ice 9 Kills. Now, I found Ice 9 Kills around like the start of last year, So I guess a year ago, probably around now. And I listened to their Silver Scream album because I believe their new album hadn't even been out yet. So their most overrated song is their biggest song. It's still good, but it's overrated because I believe Ice Nine Kills just does. They do that style of music better. The song's a great mistake, by the way. Their metal is better than their rock, in my opinion, even though their rock is really good. Their metal is just better. Their most underrated song is What Lies Beneath off of I don't even know what the album's called. Hold up. The Predator Becomes the Prey. There are a couple good songs in that album, but they're very hit or miss in my opinion. It's just got one of their it's one of their older albums, but it's got their sound now, and they just have been evolving that over time. And that's like one of the songs, I guess, that they took that style from and developed what it is today. I recommend giving it a listen if you haven't heard it. It's a good song. And it is one of the least songs they have listened to on that album. And I put 2 of my favorite songs for Ice Nine Kills because I can't actually decide between which one I like better. And I would say if I had to pick one over the other, it would be Stabbing in the Dark from the Silver Scream, followed by Hip to Be Scared off of Horrorwood. I just like the whole vibe Stabbing in the Dark gives off, as well as the song being based off of Halloween, because Halloween is one of my favorite Halloween movies. And as you guys know, I'm a big fan of Michael Myers and him being in Dead by Daylight and such. And the fact that they made an acoustic version with your boy Matthew K. Heafy from Trivium. It's not as good, but it's still good. And then Hip to Be Scared. You could call it a bit overrated, but I think it's deservingly so. The amount of listens it's getting right now, because the breakdown is so whack in that song, and it has just a nasty, the flow of the song is just super good. Okay, the song structure is a bit unique, but we like that around here. We like unique song structure. Other than that, it's just it's a banger all the way through. Another good one off of that album is Funeral Derangements. All right, moving on to Motionless in White. I've listened to pretty much the entirety of Motionless in White discography, I think is how you pronounce it. All these songs that I'm mentioning are from their most recent 2 albums, because their older stuff, they've evolved over the years, right? So they had Creatures Infinite, not Devil's Night. That's just a song off the album. Reincarnate, not Dark Passenger. And they had Graveyard Shift, which is, I think, by far Motionless in White's worst album. And then Disguise and Scoring at the End of the World. So yeah, these songs are from Scoring the End of the World and Disguise, because I just believe that's where Motionless in White's best work is. I can't say I have listened to too much of the Creatures album, even though people love that album. I listened to 3 songs off of it, but I can't in good conscience rank them here, because I feel like I don't have much of an opinion on it. I believe Motionless in White's most overrated song is Werewolf, because it's not one of their most listened to songs, but because I believe Motionless in White's most listened to songs, being Masterpiece and Another Life, are deserving of their status. Werewolf, however, being one of the most listened to on Scoring at the End of the World, I like the song. Don't get me wrong, I like the song Werewolf, but is not one of my more favorite Motionless in White songs, just because there are other songs on Scoring the End of the World and Disguise that I think are better than Werewolf. It's good, but I'm not dogging on it at all. I just think there's better Motionless in White songs. Now, it took me a while to go through Motionless in White's last couple albums and see which one is the most underrated. Based off of listens alone on Spotify, Corpse Nation, you're just gonna hear me keep gushing about this song because I just absolutely love this song from them. And it is absolutely underrated. It doesn't even have 2 million listens on Scoring the End of the World. And I'm going to bring up the breakdown once again, because it is one of the greatest breakdowns of all time. And I will show it off right now, just so you can see what I'm talking about. Research this motherfucker. It's insane. I freaking love it. Also, I'm noticing a common theme here. I only like pre-breakdown shouts that include the F-bomb, because it just makes that much more nasty and disgusting, I think. It's definitely a bit underrated, in my opinion. I would say my favorite song I would say my favorite song is probably Thoughts and Prayers from the Disguise album. It's probably, I'm trying to think. It's one of Motionless in White's heaviest songs. Should we check out the breakdown again? I said I wouldn't play the music, but like, why not? It's... Wait a second. Hold up, you hear that? You hear that? Listen to that background, like, high-pitched ambient noise. It's like a high-pitched ding. And hold up, I just noticed something. We're finding this out live on air. From CyberX, listen. That machine, like, scraping sound. I'm pretty sure it's the same sound effect. Chris Motionless, I'm coming for you, man. I noticed it. I've noticed it. That's insane. That was very, like, I didn't notice that until, like, just now. Replay, Eric, replay if you're not too lazy in editing. Please don't be too lazy. Show my face of, like, realization when I recognize that. And one of the smaller bands we have on the list here that not most people know, but they're rising in popularity, is Citizen Soldier. Like I mentioned in my last video, they mostly sing about mental health and depression issues while also making banger music at the same time. They only have a couple metal elements. Like, it's very rare for them. Like, I'd say it's like 5% of their songs. But I enjoy them all nonetheless, and I'm mentioning them in this video. Their most overrated song is I'm Not Okay. Don't get me wrong. It's good. It's their second most listened to song, I believe. When it comes to their, like, sad depression songs, Would Anyone Care just does everything better that this song does, and it's from the same album. This song's still good, don't get me wrong. It's just the one I would call overrated. These next two songs, I would say, are both underrated, but the second one is my favorite song from them. It falls under the same category, though. But the one we're putting as their most underrated is Save Your Story off of their Scarecrow album. It's one of my most listened to songs last year, and it's one of their heavier songs, which is why I like it. And it's just a song about, you know, not ending it all, saving your own story and moving on in life. And also, like, it's an inspirational, like, pick yourself up, do things better in your life, I guess. And as my favorite song from them, but also goes in the underrated category, is Hope It Haunts You. I have an AMV of it on my channel. It's my most second viewed video. So if you want to listen to that entire song while also watching a video that I made, go check out that Berserk AMV. Moving on to Bad Omens. It was hard for me to also find a most overrated song from them, because the entire Death of Peace of Mind album, the most listened to songs on there, I think deserve it. Like, Just Pretend, I think deserves it. The Death of Peace of Mind, I think just deserves to be as listened to as it is. So I had to go back to their last album, Finding God Before God Finds Me, and I'm going with Dethrone. I think it being one of the more listened to on that album isn't a bad thing, but I get that it's probably Bad Omen's heaviest song. I don't know why. I just don't necessarily, like, for whatever reason, it's like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. I don't know why. I just think Bad Omens does heavy a bit better than this song does, and I'm not sure why it's listened to as much as it is. I couldn't also find an underrated song off of the Death of Peace of Mind, because I also think the worst songs on that album deserve to be not as listened to as they are. I would say the most underrated one on the Death of Peace of Mind is probably either Miracle or I Don't Want the Money, or The Gray, but it has a good amount of listens, so I wouldn't say The Gray. But the one I would say is their most underrated is If I'm There from, I believe, I don't know if it came out with the deluxe edition of Finding God Before God Finds Me or not, but I'm going with If I'm There. If you like inspirational, like, hopeful songs, If I'm There is good. It's not for everybody, and it's definitely, like, a pretty unique Bad Omens song, but I would recommend listening to the entirety of the song, because I've been listening to a lot lately, and I've been really enjoying it. Moving on to my favorite songs from them. I put 2 here because I couldn't really decide, but I'm pretty sure I have one that I do like a little bit more than the other. We have Never Know and Like a Villain. Ooh, big surprise. Eric's talking about Like a Villain again. Ooh. But I'm going to say Never Know is my ultimate favorite song from them, because I listened to it before The Death of Peace of Mind came out. And that chorus is just like one of the, like, it's one of the best choruses ever, in my opinion. And then Like a Villain, I'm not even going to talk about it, because you guys just know and are probably tired of hearing about Like a Villain. The structure and, like, amazingness of the song is just through the roof. Alrighty, moving on to Starset, probably my first or second favorite band ever. Most overrated song. It wasn't hard for me to think of this. It has begun. It's like, I think it's their second biggest song. It's a good song off of Transmissions, but it's just a little bit repetitive, and I don't know. I think I've just listened to it a bit too much. It's the same case with like Carnivore on Transmissions. It's a bit too repetitive and like, I would say Carnivore is a bit more deserving of its listens, though, than It Has Begun. I could say My Demons, and you could say, Eric, you hate repetitiveness, so why is it not My Demons? My Demons is just good, man. It deserves to be Starset's most listened to song. I put 3 underrated songs for Starset, because I believe every single one of these need to be listened to a lot more than they are. And that would be Into the Unknown from Vessels, Bringing It Down from Vessels, and Annihilated Love from Horizons. I couldn't even remember the album there for a sec. Sorry, I hit you in the face. Starting with Into the Unknown, it's one of their heavier songs, and I just like the ambience sound of, like, with correlating with the name of the song, the ambience of like going into the unknown of like space is just so well done that it like just makes me feel like the song wants you to, I guess. And that with it being heavy and Dustin's vocals is just really good. And it's everything I pretty much just said about Into the Unknown also applies to Bringing It Down. It is probably Starset's heaviest song. It's their heaviest like instrumental song, because Starset has heavier, like he actually screams in De-Evolution and Telekinetic. Bringing It Down doesn't have any screaming, at least to my knowledge. I hope I'm not screwing that up, because it's one of my favorite Starset songs. And then Annihilated Love off of Horizons. I don't have too much to say about it other than it's just underrated and go listen to it. I wanted to put Perfect Machine off of Divisions here, but it is one of the more listened to songs on Divisions, so I decided not to add it here. But I still recommend going to listen to it because it is a really good song. And my absolute favorite song from Starset is Let It Die from Transmissions. It's a song that stuck with me ever since it came out, basically. Well, kind of, when I found Starset. I don't know why. The chorus is just super catchy. I love catchy choruses, if you haven't noticed. And if the song's like lyrics correlate with like what's going on in my life at the time, I'll kind of hang on to the song and remember like listening to it and what it did for me when I was going through that hard time, basically. So yeah, Let It Die, amazing song of Transmissions. Go give it a listen. Alrighty, moving on to Wage War. Their most overrated song, in my opinion, and which might be a bit of a hot take, is Low off of the Pressure album. Just because, and I mentioned this as well last time, the riff is a steal from Architect's Doomsday, which I don't have the biggest problem with because art is all built upon each other anyways, but not to necessarily a one-to-one scale. The first half of the song is different from the last half because it's all heavy, like the first third of the song, and then the last like 2/3 is so much different from the first half. But that's just a critique of the song structure. Other than that, it's I believe, is it the second or first most listened to off of Pressure? But either way, it's a bit too much listened to, in my opinion. And by far, in my opinion, their most underrated song is Never Enough off of the Deadweight album. I found myself listening to this song so much last year and even still recently that like it's all you want from a Wage War song all in one. Heavy vocals, great cleans. The message behind the song is, in my opinion, amazing, and the breakdown is just insane. And take everything I just said about Never Enough and apply it to my favorite song from Wage War, being Don't Let Me Fade Away. It's got the best chorus I believe that Wage War has ever come out with. It's the catchiest, the screams are amazing, followed by an amazing breakdown. Like I said, everything from Never Enough also applies here. Moving on from Wage War, we have Fit for a Frickin' King. Now, it's hard for me to criticize Fit for a King, well, because I have a freaking tattoo from one of their album covers on my arm. So if I had to pick anything for their most overrated song, I would say it's Locked in My Head. I almost put When Everything Means Nothing. It's their biggest song, but I listened to it again, and it's rightfully so their biggest song. It deserves all the attention it's getting. I don't know, Locked in My Head, they had a lot of, don't get me wrong, I love The Path, but they had a lot of hit or miss when it came to their lighter songs on that album, being Locked in My Head and Breaking the Mirror. They're both a bit overrated on that album, but I like them, and I chose to go with Locked in My Head, even though it is a good song, but it's a tad bit overrated. And if I had to pick their most underrated song. I just realized I did this backwards. I had 2 overrated songs. Another overrated song from them is Reaper from the Hell We Create album. It's a good song, like Locked in My Head. It's just, for whatever reason, the most listened to on that album. It's the first single they had come out, so it's been out the longest, maybe, but it's still a little bit too listened to, in my opinion. Going off of just the top of my head, I would have to choose their most underrated song. The one that's coming to mind right now is Stacking Bodies from Death Grip. And my absolute favorite song from Pipper King is Tower of Pain. I talked about it in the last video as well. Nastiest breakdown, one of the nastiest breakdowns ever. The first one, not the second one. The first one was just... That's a bad rendition, but, you know, amazing. And then, like, the build up into the chorus, into breakdown, into the insaneness. It's really good. Go listen to it. And we're actually going to be finishing off here with Bullet for My Valentine. Now, I actually haven't listened to enough of Bullet for My Valentine's most popular songs to say an overrated song. A couple of months ago, I would have said Rainbow Veins off of their new album, because that's the album I've listened to from them the most. I've since listened to it and realized that it's very much deserving of the popularity it has. And moving on to the most underrated Bullet for My Valentine that I know is Shatter, because that song is amazing. Like, give it a listen, and it's a simple song, but Bad Omens gets away with being simple with Just Pretend, so why can't Bullet for My Valentine get away with Shatter? Like, just give it a listen to like the first 30 seconds and you realize it's a headbanger for sure. And the absolute last song we are going to be talking about today is my favorite from Bullet for My Valentine, and it's going to be Knives. It's not overrated at all. It is very much deserving to be the most listened to on their title album. You'll notice like repetition of things I've been saying about like my favorite songs from people. If it has a catchy chorus with a nasty breakdown, I'm gonna enjoy it. Like, there's not much more I can say than that. Go give Knives a listen. It's an amazing song. All right, that is officially going to round out the very first weekly episode of Why. If you have any topics of what you'd like me to hear me talk about, it doesn't have to be music. It can be video games. I eventually want to talk about like my favorite stuff from like Dark Souls 3, or I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring recently, so I could be talking about that. Give me your suggestions in the comments below. Let me know how I'm doing talking by myself, because I'm not sure if I'm actually doing a good job explaining the things I'm trying to get across to you guys. Also, I hope you guys appreciate that the light I had back there, I moved it to behind my camera, so the lighting on my face is a bit better, but it doesn't look like I have the freaking tree in the back there. Alright guys, that's it from me. Have a good one. Bye-bye.